Alrighty. Okay, let me get the comments. I should get the notification in a minute that we're live. Allergies.
There we go.
All right, we're live. What is this? Sunday night, right?
Sunday, yes.
Yeah, usually we don't book interviews for Sunday night, but I've been putting Gloria off again and again and again. So we had a late night last night. We didn't get to bed till 3:30, 4 o'clock after Ghost Hunt. So we were kind of tired, but we kept pushing this back, and I really wanted to get Gloria on in front of you guys. Hello, Michelle, Colleen, Brenda, Wendy. As promised, we are finally going to have the conversation about spirit guides tonight and a bunch of other things, because our guest, spiritual medium Gloria
Weichand.
That's right. I'm reading it again, and I still want to say Weichand.
Okay.
Okay, Weichand.
Right.
She is someone we met a month or two ago. I was just, again, Googling, looking for people who we could talk to about spirit guides. Contacted Gloria. Gloria and I and Chris had an amazing conversation for an hour or more over Zoom. And I said, I can't wait to have this conversation again in front of the people that follow us, because I didn't know a lot about you, to be honest with you. Again, I was just looking for the spirit guide connection. And then after speaking to you about everything, your story about, your foundation and everything, I was just like, wow. I'm like, spirit guide. I could, we could talk about that, but there's so much more.
That's a sidebar.
Yeah, that really is. It's like the added track on the album that nobody listens to. So Gloria, we'll start with you telling our followers about yourself, and then we'll take it from there. Give us some background on you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for having me, first and foremost. I've done a lot of research on your organization, what you've been doing here.
And you're still talking to us. Wow. Kudos to you.
You do a lot of interesting things and have some very interesting people on. So I feel honored to be one of them now. I am a spiritual evidential medium, have been since about 4 to 5 years old. I'm the 7th generation in my family. That's how far back I was able to trace it, thanks to Ancestry.com. I'm sure it goes back further than that, but that's how far I was able to trace it back. I am also a grief counselor. I am Roman Catholic, born and raised in this religion, always will be until I take my final breath here. So, but I respect all religions. Just for me, on a personal note, I am a Roman Catholic. My husband is actually a deacon, an ordained deacon in the Catholic Church. So we're very involved in our religion. I have had this ability from a young child to be able to communicate to the other side. My 2 strongest abilities are clairvoyance, where I see spirit, and clairaudience, that I hear spirit. My other 3 clairs will tap in as needed, but most of the time, the hearing and seeing seem to be my 2 strongest when it comes to the world of spirit. My imaginary friend for me was not so imaginary. She was really one of my spirit guides by the name of Patty. And until I became an adult, you have to remember, we're going back into the 50s and 60s. I was born in 49, so I just gave up my age. So I was born in 49. And back then, going through the 50s and into the 60s, there weren't people like me around. There was really nobody I could talk to about my own gifts and abilities other than my grandmother. I knew it was in my family. And my grandmother, who I love dearly, had this ability, but she didn't talk about it. And she would actually, say to me when I was a little girl, I would be 5, 6, 7 years old, and she'd say to me, okay, we're going to go into the living room, and there's going to be a woman sitting there. And you tell me anything you see around this woman. And I would, follow her into this room, and there would be a woman sitting there, and I would say, oh, there's a man named George standing behind you. And the woman would grab her chest. And that was her husband who had passed in spirit. And I would say, he told me not to tell you not to forget to feed the rooster. And she would again grab her chest, So I was bringing through evidence that I was connecting with her husband. I didn't even realize that it was anything, abnormal that I was doing. But then when it was all done and the woman was in tears and grandma would take me in the other room, she'd say to me, now don't tell anybody what you just did. So it was kind of like, what am I doing then? And then of course, going through parochial school, the nuns and the priests would teach us to pray fervently and to, listen for the voice of God and listen for the voice of the angels and the saints and our loved ones who had passed. And I did. And I heard and I saw. And when I would tell them, they'd say, that's not good. That's not what you should be doing. And I would say, but that's what you're teaching me to do. And I'm doing it. So it was very confusing for me as a child to have this gift and ability. And then when I became an adult and I understood that there were many other people like me, because I had a rather lonely childhood, except for my cousins, because, I made the mistake of telling a friend, I think I was in 7th grade, that I saw her grandmother standing with her and, gave her information. And she went home and told her mother, and her mother called my mother, and my mother said, you must never do that. So I really, kind of pulled back from having a lot of friends growing up. So once I became an adult and understood and began my study into this world, metaphysical world, and understood and embraced it as gifts and abilities from God, and that there was nothing negative connected with it, then I began to, come out more, so to speak, and began doing this work. So
you said that you could actually see spirits and hear them.
Well, it's really funny. There's 5 ways to connect to spirit. It's clairvoyance to see, clairaudient to hear, clairsentient, which is the feel, claircognizant, which is the all-knowing, and clairguscience, which is taste and smell. So my 2 strongest were seeing, clairvoyance, and clairaudience, which is hearing. So when I say that I see spirit, there are times, like if I do large galleries, I've done galleries of 300 plus. So when I'm doing a large gallery like that and spirit will start to come in, I believe then I see with my own eyes. And I'm a very organized medium. For me, the mother's side will stand on the left side, father's side on the right side. That's the way I train myself and I work with spirit. So when they step in, so to speak, and I'm able to say you have a mother energy by you, a grandmother on the mother's side, a grandfather on the father's side, I'm able to do that because of my organizational skills. However, most of the time, and even the mediums out there who believe that they're clairvoyant and they see everything with their own eyes, they really don't. They're seeing with their third eye, their inner eye. And when you see clearly with your inner eye, as I do, it's exactly the same as seeing with your own eyes.
Well, I've heard from, again, mediums that I've spoken to through the years, they'll tell me that, like, if spirit is there, they don't see the person or, the silhouette or whatever. They get, like, visions in their head and, like, messages that they try to kind of make sense of and put together for the person they're reading or whatever they're doing in the room. Are you saying that you actually see the spirit?
I'm saying I see the spirit. For me, when they come through,
I've never heard that.
They show themselves the way they looked at the age that they passed. In other words, a grandmother that'll come in or a mother that'll come in. I did a reading the other night and the mother passed. She was only 48 years old. She passed from cancer. And she showed me herself as she looked, not sick, but as she looked at that age. And then she became younger. Then she became younger, because my belief is, because of what I'm told by spirit, that if we're 95 when we pass, we will quickly go back to the age of 33. Spirit tells me that 33 is the perfect age here. That's when development stops. And that's when, we really stop our learning, so to speak. If you don't get it by the age of 33, you never will.
You're not gonna.
That's what they tell me. Now, if
there's no hope for me then.
Yeah.
I didn't know the train already left the station that long ago. Now I know. All right.
Always hope. For me, most of my clientele are parents who have lost children. So I will say to parents, I did a reading on a mother the other night. She lost her 3-year-old. She was tragically hit and killed by a car. And I said to her, that happened 7 years ago. She said, yes, it did. How did you know that? I said, because she's telling me, So the girl was 10 years old now. She's 10 years old now. And that's what I said to them. She's no longer 3 years old. She's continuing to grow on the other side. So she will grow to be the age of 33.
I never heard that before.
Yeah, that's what Spirit has always told me. And that's my belief.
I had a joke too about the feeding the rooster, but I probably inappropriate at this time. So we'll save that for another time.
That's what 33 passed him by. There's no hope.
Anyway, let's cover the spirit guide stuff, and then we'll go back into, because I want people to remember you for what we're going to talk about after, not the spirit guide stuff.
Okay, I just want to say one thing to clear it up about being clairaudient, and this is important for your people, listeners, to understand. When I say I hear spirit, and I want people to recognize this, I hear a thought. The voice of spirit is a thought. So many mediums say, I don't hear them, but they're thoughts that come in. So I want people to
telepathy.
Yeah, it's thoughts, because you're connecting soul to soul,
right,
to spirit, just like we're connecting here. So I just wanted to clear that up. So those of you who are waiting to hear a voice, don't disregard the thoughts that come in, because that's the voice of spirit.
Is there a way, again, I know we're going to get really sidetracked here, but is there a way to condition yourself to receive those type of messages, like you said,
Absolutely.
telepathy
Absolutely.
in your mind?
Absolutely. People have to understand that we are always in control. Spirit is never in control. We are in control. We're in control with how they work, how we work with them, when we work with them. You know, you want to live in the real world. You know, once people start doing this work, they get very excited, especially the student mediums, and, you know, they'll approach people in Macy's or Walmart or whatever. And I tell them, no, there's a time and place. You want to be prepared. You want to make sure your prayer life is strong. You want to make sure your meditation life is strong. That's key. If you want to if you want to form a strong connection with the world of spirit, you have to meditate, because meditating quiets down that left brain, which is always busy, and where all imagination and all the fears and worries are in. You want to become a clear, open conduit to the world of spirit. You can only do that by quieting the left brain and connecting this way. So
that'll never happen for me either. My brain is way too busy. I don't allow. I've tried to meditate. It will never take.
You can't just try to meditate, John. The only true way to meditate for beginners is guided visual meditation. You go on YouTube and you type in guided visual meditation, where someone talks you through it. You can't just listen to music and expect to be able to get there. You have to do guided visual meditation. And there's a million out there. Guided visual meditation.
I was trying to fall asleep. I can't. The voices are always so drawn out.
Yeah, but it's about, you got to find the one that doesn't do that to you. But it's about retraining your brain.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I know that's part of it. That's a big part of it when it comes to mediumship, and everybody that I know that practices it. They do say that meditation is a huge part of, like you said, because part of that connecting is, like you said, shutting off the parts of your brain that are always kind of interfering. They're living
getting rid of
the
those
real
blockage.
world. You're so active in taking in all that surrounds you at the moment that you never start shutting off those lights.
Even the places where you go, you know, I've seen some of the places you go to try to connect to spirit. The best way to connect quicker, you know, is to close your eyes, center, and call them in. But you have to be able to do that by quieting that left brain. You know, you have to be able to, and then you yourself will be able to feel it. Once you learn how to connect, you'll feel when they're stepping in. You won't have to look at your machines to see, the machine's picking up something. You'll be able to say, I feel the energy, they're coming in. I can sense them coming in. Whatever Claire is working with you, whether you see, feel, hear, know, taste, smell, you'll sense it when you learn to do this. So meditation is key. Meditation is key.
I'll give that a shot. Either that or some medical marijuana may that may work too. All right, let's really get into spirit guides here, because we've mentioned it a bunch of times. The theory, if that's what you want to call it, of spirit guides. I am not a big believer in the existence of spirit guides, or that it's possible to find yours and everybody has one. It's just me. I'm not. I wasn't raised. I'm a Catholic. If you put a gun to my head and say, what are you religiously? I was baptized. I didn't really go to church. My mom would get so frustrated with me, because even now at the age of 53, the Our Father prayer, I could get through about a line and a half. And still at this age, I can't remember the whole thing. But my beliefs are my beliefs, and they're based on my life experiences and, other things that I learned or I've, been taught. But again, spirit guides, we've talked about this before. You're saying everybody's got them, right?
Well, every single one of us is going to die at some point. Nobody's going to get away free.
Hold on.
Every
You
single.
just shocked me.
Okay. Every single one of us is going to die. So when we pass into the world of spirit, we have choices, just like we have choices here. We have choices there. We can choose to stay, or we can choose to come back for a higher purpose, which is what I believe. I do not believe we come back again and again and we're a male and we're a female and we're a dog and a cat. I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult anybody, but that's not what I'm told by spirit. So that's not what I believe. I believe we can choose to come back for a higher purpose. For a purpose.
So wait, I gotta stop because we're getting into like different areas now that I gotta pick your brain about.
Okay.
I've talked to a lot of people, believe a lot of different things.
I know that.
I am not a believer of past lives, and I don't really want to get into that whole spiel.
Right.
But you're telling me
Right.
what you're saying now, based on all these years of experience that you have.
Right.
You believe when we do go wherever we go, that there is a choice, and you can stay around.
Yes.
In spirit form wherever you want to.
Well, that's where we get into the spirit guides. So
Okay.
we're going to get into that in a minute. But we can choose to come back for a higher purpose. My belief is mentally and physically handicapped are our greatest teachers because they chose to come back to be born into that body that way. So many will learn from them. We don't learn anything in life through the good things. We learn our greatest lessons through the things that bring us to our knees. That's where our greatest lessons lie. So I often say, if you want to, if you have an opportunity to go behind a closed door with Albert Einstein or a closed door with a Down syndrome, choose the Down syndrome because they'll teach you what's really important in life, which is love, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, acceptance, not what you can learn in the book. Okay. Right. And also there are those who choose to come back. I'll use Oprah Winfrey as an example. She does great things. She could have chosen to come back as a woman, an African-American woman who would achieve greatness and help the millions that she helps. So yes, I believe there's a choice. Okay. Now for many, they choose to stay. They choose to stay and be spirit guides for others. Now my belief is, because this is what I've learned and this is what I believe, that we each have 4 guides that choose us at the time of conception, which is when life begins. Now they choose us for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they lived a similar life. Maybe because they're interested in what our life journey will be. For whatever reason, they choose us. We each have a joy guide, a protector guide, a doctor teacher guide, and a doctor chemist guide. The joy guide is the guide that comes in when joy is difficult to find or when we're experiencing joy. The protector guide is the guide who comes in, especially a Native American for women, Native American Indians are the ones, like my protector guide is a Native American Indian. Okay. Doctor teacher guides are the guides who help you on your never ending journey. You know, oh, I'm Catholic. Now I'm Buddha. Now I'm atheist. Now I'm Catholic. Now that's a never ending journey, you know, just like you're doing, the two of you, never ending journey. And then you have the doctor chemist. The doctor chemist is the guide that's very instrumental in the caring of the body, the physical body, body, mind. You know, this God is very big for anybody who suffers from any type of addiction. Also helping us to, you know, consume the right things for the body, which is a temple, you know, so we really should be good to the body. So that's that guide. And then, of course, there's a master guide, which is the highest guide. Now, this guide, and that's the only guide that can change. So, you know, if you follow the religion of Catholicism, which I do, it could be Jesus, it could be the Blessed Virgin, it could be Saint Joseph or one of the apostles, whoever. So usually the master guide is the guide who steps in according to the religion that you're following at that time. So the other 4 guides stay: joy, protector, doctor, teacher, doctor, chemist. They're always with us from conception until we step out of the physical body. The master guide can change as we go through and change our own journey, whatever that may be. Okay, so it's very different from the way we perceive it to be. Now, I, on a personal note right now, work with about 17 different guides. Okay, but my 4 guides have been with me and will remain with me until I step out of the physical body. And I know them so well that I actually have a biography on each one of my 4 main guides. I actually have a biography, and I did that through intensive meditation, where I would go in, I would request that they step in, and then I would ask certain questions from my journal, and they would reply with the answers, and I would, fill it out. And so I actually have a biography. So I know when they're stepping in, and I work with all of them. Especially, I'd say I work with about 12 of them right now. And we have a relationship where if I am doing a reading and it's somebody whose loved one may be assisted in their own passing, which is suicide, okay? My one guide will take one step forward. That's their way of telling me this person passed from assisted passing, from suicide. So I'm able to say very confidently to my sitter, oh, I'm so sorry, but your son assisted in his own passing. And she'll say, yes, he did, or yes, my daughter did. So I work with them.
You're not necessarily getting that information from spirit. You may be getting that from a guide.
No, I'm getting it mostly from spirit. They're just telling me my spirit guides work with the people who come in. Usually before my readings, which a lot of mediums don't do this, but I teach people to do this. Before I even do my readings, because I always pray and meditate, I do the Divine Mercy Chaplet, my Catholic connection. I do that before every reading, and I will receive 2 to 3 pages or more of information from their loved one. Person isn't even here yet, and I'll receive. So when they come, I close my journal, and then I, educate them about how the spirit world blends with our world, because I feel that education is very important. And then I begin bringing in information for them. And then at some point, their loved one will say to me from spirit, open your journal, because they want to make sure I bring them the information. And I do only evidential mediumship. I do not do psychic readings, because I really don't believe in psychic readings. I can tell you anything you want to know about the future, doesn't mean it's going to happen. I work on pure evidence. I bring in information.
I like that.
Yeah.
I don't believe the whole psychic medium stuff. I really don't. And I know I have friends, really good friends, that claim to be that. But I'll be honest with you, not one of them predicted a coronavirus.
Well, let me tell you.
And that's a world-changing event, and not the vibrations or whatever, that their abilities didn't register 1 iota on their radar. Come on.
But I have to say that I do have a very strong psyche. But not to tell you if you're going to sell your house,
right,
if you're going to meet a man next month, not for silly things like that. This business I'm in is $1 billion business.
Oh,
and
yeah.
most of the money is made off the charlatan psychics. But I have to say, there are people who have a strong psyche. But the only way I would ever believe anything a psychic said to me about the future is if they were able to bring in information about the past or something present, not that you can find on the computer. We live in an age where you can track a phone number or type in a person's last name, pull up one obituary.
Easy.
And the charlatans can do 10 readings off one obituary. So for me, it's important that people understand this. So when people say to me, do you think this one is credible? Do you think that one is credible? I absolutely love John Edwards. I love John Edwards because he's real. He has only brought in evidential information from day one. And he too never forgot his roots. He's a good family man. He's a devout Catholic. He does the rosary before each reading, and he brings in evidence, which means that he works like I do. We work in God's love and light. We're not in it for the money. God knows I'm not in it for the money at all, or I wouldn't have a little house that I have here. I'd be in a nice beachfront home. But I know when I go to the other side, I'll have it. But that's another story. But I believe in John Edwards. As far as the other ones that are out there, I can't speak to them because they have never proven to me, they have never proven to me that. I also like a medium that can go directly to the person. You have a lot of mediums that will, be in a room of 300 people and say, okay, I have somebody named Edward and he passed from cancer, and they give it, and 20 hands will go up. So chances are in a group of 300, they know somebody named Edward, and goes on and on. And then of course you have the medium hogs who will take everything. If I say Hitler's here, they'll say, oh, he was my great uncle, So I like mediums to have the ability to connect 2 ways, spirit centered as well as going directly to the person.
So let's go back to the spirit guide thing really quick here, because people are asking, and
Okay.
how do they? Because I asked you the same question. If
Meditation.
I have them, how do I find them? How
Meditation.
do I?
Meditation. There's a wonderful book. There's a wonderful book that I highly recommend for everyone. It was written by my friend and colleague. It's a very simple book, very easy to read. They'll read it cover to cover, but then they need to go back and work it like a workbook. And it's called So You Want to Be a Medium. That's the name of the book. So You Want to Be a Medium. Very simple title. That's what it is. And there's a section there on spirit guides, a whole section. So the way I believe it says to do it in the book, and the way I did it was, for 30 days, I connected solely with my joy guide. And each day that I would go into meditation, I would open up my journal before the meditation, and I would write down 4 or 5 questions that I had for my joy guide. Then I would close my journal. Then I would go into meditation, request that this person would step in, my joy guide would step in, and they would step in. This is really important. People do not meditate properly when they're connecting with spirit. You cannot have a two-way conversation with spirit, because if you do, everything you're bringing in that they're saying is coming from your own left brain. Words come from the left brain. So if you are communicating with them and saying, so when were you born? So, who was the political figure when you lived on the earth plane? You are forming words from you're waking up that left brain. So when spirit steps in, you say nothing. You just are open and you let them receive. They know what you need to hear. And certainly if you write it in your journal, they will respond to the questions in your journal. But at any time, if you say so much as, how are you? It's good to meet you. You're breaking the connection. Words come from the left brain. So meditate properly.
See, I like that. I mean, that at least makes sense to me.
It's like walkie-talkies.
Yeah,
If you're holding
but
the button,
there's crap that doesn't make sense that I hear from people all the time, and
Right.
that at least makes a lot of sense, because, like you said, you've already kind of preconditioned the questions in your head by writing them down. That kind of solidifies it even more, the thought in your head when you put it to paper.
Right.
Now you're going into this meditative state where you're really not. Are you concentrating on the questions at least, or you're just in meditation?
Concentrate on anything. I write.
Okay, see, that makes sense to me.
And I just see her step in, and I just listen to what she has to say. And for me, I keep my eyes open, because I can see very clearly in my mind's eye with my eyes open. And I teach my students to do it the same way, because nothing bothers me more than seeing a medium sit in front of somebody with their eyes closed. To me, that's a fear factor. I have to say this too. There has never been anyone alive, or ever will be, that will be able to have a two-way conversation like we are having right now. And I say to my students, if the day comes that a spirit steps in and you can talk, you better check your pulse, because chances are you're over there. And that's the truth. You cannot, nobody will ever be alive to be able to do that. There is a veil between worlds. And what we have to learn to do as true mediums is help the veil become a little thinner through prayer and meditation. And spirit acknowledges that, brings their vibration down a little. We bring ours up a little, and we connect here like this. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think because people are making comments. There's a couple of comments that I just want to address real quick, so we don't get in any hot water with some of these people. Somebody mentioned about a popular TV medium, and he goes into these places, and when he's doing what he's doing, as far as I'm getting, especially what I'm getting from Gloria right now, he's not asking any questions. He's not talking to spirit. He's there just as a vessel, and he's quiet, and whatever he says, he never follows up with a question or anything. He's just there kind of eyes closed or standing there kind of taking in information. I don't recall there ever being a back and forth with the mediums that I know and that I've seen on TV. That's just me personally. And somebody asked if anyone could communicate this way with their spirit or guides.
Yes, everyone has this ability, but you need to understand how to do it. You need to learn how to do it properly. When people say to me, "Oh, I've been connecting with spirits since I'm a kid," well, what classes have you taken? Are you organized? Is there a time and a place? No, I just do it. You have to be organized. Bringing in you know, talking to spirit is this much of it. Now you have to learn the etiquette of mediumship. I've seen the best mediums fail because they bring the information in the wrong way. You know, so that left brain is always ready, willing, and able to add. So you'll get a really solid piece of evidence, and then the medium's left brain will wake up and they'll add more to it, and you just lost a really good piece of information. So it's very involved. It's a lot more. And as far as the mediums you're talking about, John, I don't know how they work. I don't know them. What I do know is only positive energy exists on the other side. There is no such thing as a trapped spirit. To me, they're big money makers, but it's not credible. Now, do I believe that you can go into places where, like, they want me to go to battlefields and they ask me to go to a prison in Pennsylvania? And I always say to them, I'll gladly go, but not in the middle of the night. Spirits come out in the daytime too. You know, I don't need special lighting and special music and special cameras. I'll go anytime. Now, will they pull in? Yes, their energies will pull in because they know we want them to pull in. But they don't hang out there. Their souls don't hang around. How do you trap a spirit? It's just ludicrous. You know, so a lot of people are taken advantage of, you know, especially those who are frightened or depressed. And, you know, people find people like me who are going through grief or depression or whatever. And it's up to me with this God-given gifted ability to help ease that pain that they're going through, not to increase it for money.
No.
You know,
there's a responsibility there, and it is a form of counseling as well. I mean, it's not just, you know, but get back to the spirit guides real quick.
Right.
You're saying that everyone has these, was it 4?
Every single person who ever was and ever will be has 4 guides that are with.
So when you're having an issue with one of those things you're talking about, that guide represents, that's the one you kind of write the questions down and do your meditation and try to
30 days with the Joy Guide. And by the time those 30 days are up and you have a complete bio on that one guide, you'll recognize that energy whenever it steps in going forward. So for me, my Joy Guide, her name is Patty. Okay. And she actually is the little girl. She's from England and she died. She said blood poisoning, but I believe she died from leukemia. Okay. But that's what she called it. And she, you know, was a little girl with blonde pigtails. And, you know, I could see her so clearly as a child. And when I started to study this and understood spirit guides, I recognized her. And now, of course, she's an adult. But that's the way she showed herself to me when I was a child. She was the child, you see? So she's my strongest as far as being with me the most. She is the first person I see in the morning and the last person I see every night. So Patty is always with me. My protector guide, who is Chief Longfeather, he'll step in and out, you know, as I need him. So it depends on what you're going through. You know, if I'm in any danger or if I'm not feeling well, the doctor chemist will step in. So, you know, they step in as we need them. Of course, I recognize them because of the work that I do, and they work with others. But
that's what I want to explain real quick to the people that aren't getting this whole thing.
Right.
And I this is really uncharted territory for me too.
Right.
What I'm getting from this is that what we just talked about. Gloria's saying that if you want to get in tune with your spirit guide, try like one at a time, she's saying, and practice this.
Right.
And like she said, if you write down your joy guide and you write down 4 or 5 questions, you go into meditation, see what thoughts or messages may come your way relating to those things. And it's something you have to practice over and over with each guide to try to reach and connect to all them. And eventually, I guess after many, many sessions, it becomes intuitive. It's intuition.
Right.
You're having these issues, and the guide steps in, and you get a thought of just, okay, do this, or you know. So for you guys that aren't understanding, it really isn't that difficult what I'm hearing to try to.
Well, you have to understand, John, for your listeners, they have to understand that it's important if they want to do this work and do it properly. They need to go into study. They need to take workshops with the right people, however, because there's a million out there teaching it. And I will gladly refer them to anyone if they tell me the area they're from. I teach every Wednesday night online. I run a meetup, and I've run this meetup ever since meetup started for like 20 years now. And I teach classes online, and I do certification on 18-month certification program online, because for me, it's important to educate people, to help them understand what their own gifts and abilities are. You know, people, like I have people come to my class and they'll say, well, we never, you know, how do you connect to spirit? And they'll say, well, I never see, but I think I hear them. And then we'll do an exercise. I'll put them in an exercise with someone else, which on Zoom, you have the ability to pair people up and whatever. And they'll come back and I'll say, okay, how was that? And the person who says she's never sees said, well, I got a 3 and a 6. And I'll say, oh, did you hear that? No, I saw it. They say, what do you mean you saw it? Well, I saw a 3 and I saw a 6. I said, and what does 3 and 6 mean to your sitter? She said, well, 3 is the month that her mother was born, and 6 is June. That's the month her mother died. And I'll say, and you saw a 3 and a 6? And she'll say, yeah. And I'll say, but I thought you never saw. And she'll say, well, I saw it in my mind. Well, that's how you see. You see, so people don't understand how these gifts and abilities work. So first and foremost, they need to study. They need to understand first what their gifts and abilities are before they can learn to embrace them and enhance them and begin really working that way. I know that I hear and see. So it's very easy for me when somebody steps in, I know I'm going to see them and hear them. Okay. But for the novice, for the person that wants to learn how to do this, first get that book. So you want to be a medium, work it like a workbook, or look for good people.
Workshops.
Yeah, for workshops that are like Lilydale, New York. They're only open from the beginning of June till the end of September. I'm honored to teach there every year, you know, and they're teaching online. So, you know, you can go to take workshops like that, but you have to be careful who you go to, because then you have people that are out there and they want you to become professional students. They, you know, oh, you're beginner, now you're intermediate, now you're advanced, now you need to take this, and now you need to take that. And I say, you know, we're all going to die. We need light workers. Help them spread their wings and get out on your own so they can help others. So you have to be careful. But I would say for your listeners, for anybody who wants to learn how to do this with guides, get that book. So you want to be a medium. And certainly if they have any questions, they can email me or email one of you, and you can direct it to me, however. But that's important. So that's what you do with each one of your guides. 30 days you meet with your joy. 30 days you meet with your protector. 30 days you meet with your doctor teacher. 30 days with the doctor chemist. By the time those 4 months are up, you will recognize each energy as they step in. Each energy as they step in.
Well, I believe that my guides, when they drew my name, they all got in a bus together and drove off a cliff. That's what I think, because they're nowhere to be found.
No,
ever.
maybe it's just like you're not opening to listening to
Right, right. But that's why you
just like
do work, John. Right? You're pulled to do this work. That's why you're doing this. You do believe in it, or you wouldn't be doing this.
No, I do believe it 100%.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about?
Well, one, I want to really touch on the one thing. Well, there's many things very impressive about you. I mean, we're just talking about that little bit of piece right here with the spirit guides. But I want people to be aware too that you do a lot of counseling and I guess you would call it psychic counseling with people that have lost individuals, or we got, you know, it's like grief counseling to me.
Counseling, yeah.
And it was actually several months ago that we've talked to her a couple of times. Yeah. Like you, when my daughter passed, and that's what started the whole conversation about how you say you help people deal with and that connection. And I think that is so important, because I think I told you that right after my daughter passed, I had 50 million people reach out to me with the gift who wanted to connect me to my daughter.
Yeah.
And it didn't come from a place of, we want you to heal and help you with your loss. It's, we want to latch on to you. And
absolutely.
So you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
And listening to you when you were talking to John and I about what you do and how you go about it, it really struck a chord with me, because you do it in a way that is, like you said, light. It's healing. It's not invasive. You don't take advantage of somebody's pain. And I think that's something that's really missing in our society, especially as of late with everything that's happened.
I agree.
If you could just kind of tell us a little bit, like you did to John and I, about how that works with readings that you do with the counseling with the grief.
Sure. Well, I think when you do this work, above all, you have to do it in God's love and light, and you have to stay humble. You have to stay humble. You have to always remember that this is a gift and ability from God, and if you misuse it in any way, you'll lose it. It won't work right. So you have to stay humble. And when you do something like this, sometimes for many, ego can take over. Ego is edging God out. And that's what happens. I've seen the best mediums fail because it becomes a stage event, and it's not a stage event. I don't do any readings online. I could every night if I wanted to go on different stations or whatever and do that, but I choose not to because for me, it's a very personal thing. It's not about me. It's about the reading person. Can you hear that interference?
Yeah, I get it. I can't hear your mic.
Can you hear the interference?
No, I got
Yeah.
it.
Now, let me tell you what that is. That's spirit energy. That's spirit energy. They're confirming what I'm saying. Because the strongest way for spirit energy to communicate with us is through electronics, because the soul is made of energy. So when energy touches energy, you'll get interference. So just remember that going forward. That's what it is. And that happens to me all the time. A blinking light or anything is just a little hello from the other side, just to let you, if you're thinking about a loved one and your cell phone goes off or turns off, cell phone is the best thing that ever happened to the world of spirit. But anyway, so you have to stay humble. And when people come to me, they are broken. There are any loss of a loved one is painful, but the loss of a child, and I don't have to tell you this, is the hardest loss of all. It's the hardest of all. So it's very important to me that I prove to the parents that come to me that I am in fact connecting with their loved one. Okay. So I have to bring in information that only you and your child would understand. Maybe a movie that you watched last night on television. That's energy. So it's really important that I bring in information, evidence that only you could validate, that only you would be able to validate. Okay. So I also do a lot of readings on permanently ill people. And they come to me because they want peace and they're afraid to pass. They want to know what to expect. And the first thing I do is bring information, evidence of loved ones that they have over there. So they know that I'm connecting with them. So that removes the fear. Because already they know that I'm connecting with them. You hear all that interference?
Yeah. Oh, God, I mean, it's like crazy.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Okay, but it's again, yeah, but it's nothing to fear. It's just energy on energy. And of course, we're talking about you, and that's your daughter's energy stepping in. I could go in a full reading right now, but it's not the time or place. And again, for me, it's a very personal thing. It's a very private thing. So I'll do galleries, at least I was before. I'm doing galleries, online, on Zoom. I can do up to 100 people online. But I still, on a personal note, I like it to be private. Okay. Right. I also don't time my readings, which is another thing that, I don't time my spirit because I don't know how anybody can put a clock on spirit, a time on spirit, but again, for me, I'm blessed to have a husband who's always been a wonderful provider. This is not my livelihood. I always worked, but about 20, 25 years ago, I could no longer work. This was over. So I do charge, but I think there are more people that I don't charge than I do charge. It's hard for me to take the money, but again, this is what I do. So I think the main thing you have to do is you have to stay humble with these people. These are broken people, and there's different times in our lives when our minds become very fragile. We become fragile when we're dealing with a loss. We become fragile when we're in a depressed state. Many things can cause us to become fragile. And when we're in that fragile state, we seek out people like me. And unfortunately, many of them go to the wrong people. And the wrong people will take advantage of that fragility place, and it'll become about money. You know,
it does.
Yeah, I had a woman come to me whose son died. He was gay and he died from AIDS. And the psychic asked, who do you want to connect to? First big no-no. Shouldn't ask you any questions. Who do you want to connect to? And the woman said, I want to connect to my son. How did he die? He died of AIDS. He died of cancer. What type of cancer? He had AIDS. Was he gay? Yes. That's why I see him chained to an angel on the other side, and he's suffering. But I can remove those chains. But I have to give up my job. So it would be $175 a week that you would have to give me. And this woman had booked a reading with me a year before, and she came the following week after seeing this psychic to me.
Oh my God.
And the first thing I had to do was undo all the harm, all the garbage that had been fed to her, all the garbage that had been fed to her. So I sat with this woman for over 3 hours, Wow. By the time she was done, she understood that her son was loved and welcomed and embraced and happy and healthy in the spiritual sense on the other side.
God, what a world.
Do all the damage that was done.
Yeah.
Damage that was done.
One of the things, again, what it comes down to with a lot of people, and that's is the way of the world, is character. You know, genuine people with good character, people with a good heart. These are the people that you want to surround yourself with and gravitate to. And again, talking to you the very first time, we were talking about all of this stuff. And I'm like I don't know, I'm like a firing like computer. When someone tells me something and we're having a conversation, my brain fires in a million different directions of, okay, what about that? What about that? What about that? What about that? And but when we were talking to you, we were doing all that, going back and forth. And then the subject of your foundation came up. And I do want to, again, introduce people to you and to your character and you know, the things that you've done and what you went through for the love of your son. I know you know, we're having, you know, issues with the volume but if you could, and you guys, again, this is like a movie, what she's going to tell you. I mean, it just speaks to who she is as a person. And, you know, again, there's people that mediums, I'm right with you. There are a dime a dozen. And I believe in a lot of cases, it's a gimmick that can be learned if you kind of learn how to, like, sleight of hand with cards. If you learn how to do it well, you can get by on, you know, keywords and phrases and reading people. But
there's certain people you come across that do this.
That's what I'm saying.
That can not only help you, but inspire you to do and be better.
And there are many out there that are very, very good spiritual mediums.
Oh, I know there are.
Yes. But I have to say, and we do need you to share with our viewers what you shared with John and I. You are an inspiration, and John and I were in awe.
Oh my God.
Like, we talked about this for a very long time after we were done talking to you, because it is just amazing the lengths you went to and what you did and what it did for others.
Well, thank you. Well, I'll try to get through it fast because I know we're limited on time. But
we're not limited.
Okay.
Well, she may be limited.
She might. We're not.
We have 3 sons. Our middle son was born with severe congenital heart disease. His heart was on backwards, called transposition of the greater vessels. He was also born with both lungs, but only one was hooked up. So when he was 11 and a half months old, he needed double major open heart surgery, 9.5-hour surgery, where they couldn't at that point. This was done in 1978. So they couldn't transpose the vessels and put them in correctly and make the heart the right way. So what they did back then was they cut his heart in half and they inserted a baffle in the center of his heart to reroute all his blood and oxygen. And then they hooked up his left lung, and they were able to use his own pericardium tissue for the heart, for the baffle. And we believe that's why as he grew, there was really nothing for the body to reject. So thank God he's 44 years old and healthy and happy. Thank God. And I thank God every day. So, you know, his life was okay. He had about 100 seizures a day until he had his open heart surgery. So he did have some neurological problems. So, you know, going through school was difficult for him, his coordination, small motor impairment, things like that. But by the time he got into high school, he was perfectly fine, thank God. And he drives and works, and he's perfectly normal today, thank God. But when he was 19 years old, he was always limited. You know, he couldn't play sports. My husband was, you know, almost played professional baseball, and he coached varsity baseball and tennis. And Billy was never able to do those things. So when he was 19 years old, I thought maybe there's a place online that I could find, because the internet was very new to me, very new to me. And we had just gotten this computer in the house. So 3 o'clock in the morning, I went online because I couldn't sleep. And I went to a place called CashNet, which was a site for adults with congenital heart disease. And I looked down, I was hoping to find somebody around Billy's age where they could share their story, common story. And going down, I'm seeing all different messages. And then something took my eye. It was a plea from a father in China. And he said, please save my son. And his name was Wong. And I went in and I read it. And in China, from 1979 until just a few years ago, you were only allowed to have one child. And if the child was unhealthy, they just told them, like in Haiku's case, they told them he should take his 5-month-old son, let him die. When he dies, they can have another child. And the father didn't accept this, and he went online and he found this site. Now, this was for adults with congenital heart disease, so he should not have even been on that site, but he was. So of course I wrote him right back, and it turned out his son had transposition like Billy. And I said, my son had the same thing. I know there's hospitals here in the United States that can help you, and I'm going to find a hospital to help you. So I finally got to bed that night around 5 or 6 in the morning, and I woke my husband up, who was just waking up to go to work. And I said, hey, I met somebody from China, and you know, this internet is amazing. And I the whole story. And my husband said to me, you have a better chance of digging your way to China. And I said, you watch me. And I began that day calling hospitals. And then he started to work with me, my husband, and we called hospitals all over the country. And of course, first place we called was Columbia Presbyterian, but they didn't have a Children of the World program. It would cost a lot of money, and it went on and on and on. So I tried for about a month and a half to try, you know, to find hospitals. I didn't have any success. So in desperation, and the father and I have been in touch, and the boy was getting worse and worse, the baby. He was dying. So I called the New York Times, and the New York Times said, well, we could put something in the paper. It sounds like a very interesting story. Let me put you through to Channel 2 News. And I said, no, I can't go on television. And they said, well, they'll open doors for you. And I said, okay. So they put me through. I got a reporter. She said, I'm coming right up. And she drove up that day, and they interviewed me. And of course, I said, you know, that I have been to many hospitals. I went to Deborah Heart and Lung in Browns Mills, New Jersey, which has the Children of the World program. And they said this boy was too far gone, but they hadn't even. So I mentioned this. I mentioned the hospitals. And they aired at 5 o'clock, and they aired at 11 o'clock. And the next morning, 8:45, my phone rang, just like your phone rang. My phone rang 8:45 in the morning. From Spiro Margiotis, who was the president of Deborah, and he said, we reevaluated the situation and we will take the boy.
Wow.
However, no child had never been allowed out of mainland China. And they knew that, and all the hospitals knew that. It was impossible. They had been trying for 25 years to get this boy out. So now Channel 2 followed up with me and said, did you have any luck? And I told them, and they said, okay, we're going to air it again. So now they aired, though I couldn't find a hospital, and a Chinese woman who was an interpreter picked it up, and she called me up, and she said, I want you to write a letter from the heart about your story, about your son and this little boy you want to help, this baby you want to help. And I will personally deliver it to the president of China. I know him. So I wrote the letter, and she, translated it, and she was flying to China, and she gave it to him, and the president said, I'll let him out. He said, this woman has no political motivation. She's trying to help one of ours, so I'm going to open the door and let this boy out. It was the first boy. So it became international news. Reuters picked it up. So now it's in Germany, it's in Russia, it's like going all over the world. And within 2 weeks, I had 200 other requests from parents whose children were sent home to die, mostly from China. So to make a long story short, Charles Wong, who was a Chinese, he passed away last year, a Chinese billionaire, wonderful, wonderful man. He saw this on the news, and he called me up, and he said, he didn't personally call me up. He had one of his workers who worked, I think he was his executive director. I don't even know what Bob's title was. But this wonderful person who called and said, Charles said, whatever you need, you can have. And I began my executive director, and I got a board together, and it became an international organization. I didn't name it. My executive director named it Gloria's Place of Hope. And I worked mostly with NYU, and it was funny because he was operated on at Deborah successfully, but then another boy passed away at Deborah. And I don't blame Deborah, but this boy should have been done in 3 stages like Inang was, and he wasn't. They did it all in one. So my husband said, you have to have a voice. I was devastated. And he said, you have to have a voice. You have to be able to say what hospital, what surgeon, what type of surgery. You have to have a voice. And now, because I went through what I did with Billy, I can do open heart surgery. I mean, I learned so much when you have a child like this. And I started working with NYU, who was the best ever. They opened their doors before Charles Wong. When there was no money, they said, we will help you. We will raise the money. And it was their advertising that Charles saw and picked up on. And I worked with New York Hospital. I worked with University of Michigan, another wonderful hospital, and UCLA in California. So those kids were brought in. And by the time we closed our doors, after the towers fell, we opened in 1996. We closed our doors in 2003. We had helped and saved 244 children from 17 countries. Wow. And I tell that story because if Billy had not been born the way he was, I wouldn't have been online in the middle of the night.
So how many children? How many individuals?
244 children from 17 countries.
And that, like you said, the way the universe and the world works is so bizarre sometimes, in a good way and a bad way.
Yes.
Things the pendulum goes both, unfortunately. Yes. But again, because of your son, if you hadn't been online at that time on that day, 244 kids may not have. And they were. It was all destiny for this whole thing those dominoes to fall exactly the way they did.
What the real sign is, and I don't know if I shared this with you last time, I picked up that plea from the father in China in June of 96. Do you know when the plea was put out? March 31st. That's my birthday.
What?
That's when he put the plea out. And do you know when we closed our doors, when all the funds were done, when it was done, and it was not planned? March 31st. Started on my birthday and ended on my birthday.
Crazy. What are the odds?
And you could have made that happen even if you wanted to with the businesses, the way things are.
No. So for me, I feel like I was blessed. My husband, my son, his brothers, we were blessed to know why it happened, why Billy was allowed to be born this way. Because all these children are alive and well now because he was born the way he was. So for people out there who are going through trials and tribulations, there is a purpose. There is a reason. You may not believe there is because it may not feel like it is, but it is. Good comes out of every situation, no matter how difficult it is at the time. There's always good that will come out of it. There's always good.
Well, if people want to get in touch with you, do your Facebook page, your website, do you want to?
Sure. Well, my website is easy. I'm griefmedium.org.
Griefmedium.org.
That's my website. And they can just, they can always email me at voicesthatwhisper voicesthatwhisper@yahoo.com.
So, her name is right up there as well. So if you want to take a screenshot of that or whatever, Gloria
Weichand.
Gloria Weichand. You can follow her on Facebook. Give the email and the website one more time so we can type it in.
Okay, it's griefmedium.org.
Okay, .org.
And voices that whisper at yahoo.com.
Voices
that whisper at yahoo.com. Right. I have, there's many other ways to get to the website, and I have many other emails, but I think that's the easiest for your viewers to remember.
At yahoo.com.
Yeah, voices that whisper.
So again, if you're watching this and you want to just look through the comments, the information will be there, or just look at her name, go back and rewatch this and look up her name and go on Facebook. But Gloria, again, we meet so many people, especially since the pandemic and we started doing these interviews and talking to different people. I only talk to people that I kind of gravitate towards and I feel a certain vibe about, you know what I mean? And Chris we're usually like-minded, but for me, it's always the conversation that draws me. And when you and I were doing that Zoom meeting, we were talking, I was like, wow, this is a person that, again, somebody else, part of my journey in this whole paranormal thing, whose brain I could pick. And if I have questions or just to talk to, right away you struck me as, again, the genuine article who I would, definitely recommend people go to you if they wanted the grief counseling and, a reading, because I do, get the feeling, even knowing you for a short time, that you're the genuine article in your heart and in your character, your ability. I haven't really tested that. We will one day.
Okay.
but otherwise,
okay.
I do think you're a good person with a good heart.
Thank you very much for that, both of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gloria, for doing this. I know it took a while to get this set up, but I do appreciate it.
My pleasure. And
we'll
I hope
talk again soon.
Okay.
You will.
Hear from you. Okay. Very good. Good night.
Gloria.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All right, guys. So that was it. We wanted to, share, her story. We knew it took a little time at the end there and we got off subject, but I just wanted to show you who she is as a person. That's important too. Besides the readings and the spirit guides, a lot of people go to readings and, they see people online or they watch their videos and you don't know who they are. I wanted to give you an insight into who she is as a person too. And maybe
not a person who takes advantage. You could definitely tell. I mean, look what she did and what she started and raising money. And I mean, think about this. We hope to impact at least one human being in our lifetime. She impacted by having that connection with that one individual that night because of her son's health. 240 something individuals who got to live because of someone's compassion and heart and belief in what she was doing and driven. Talk about fate.
Yeah. So we'll maybe come back tomorrow and talk about the where were we yesterday? Oh, Strauss Mansion. We'll talk about the Strauss Mansion maybe tomorrow. We'll talk about some upcoming events and other interviews and stuff. But again, this night we had scheduled this interview and had to postpone it. We were dog tired from yesterday, but we thought, we wanted to have her on. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll probably see you tomorrow night. If not, definitely Wednesday.
And you see why I say at the end, be safe, be healthy, be kind to others. Look what it does. It's amazing.
It is
amazing. Be inspiring.
Be excellent to each other, like Bill and Ted says.